Welcome and good evening to The Truth is Simple. I am Dave Corum, your host, and today is February 6th, 2024, episode 2, or season 2, episode 5. We're going to talk about education, part 2 of education. Last week we kind of did a history of education, how we got to where we are today. We talked about kind of the two forms of education that we kind of transition back and forth from today, and that is the Prussian system of conformity. Go back and watch last week's video and you'll know exactly what that system is, how it got to it, and what it kind of educates our kids to be. And then look at this, the second one is the personal enlightenment. We're actually in that started maybe about 3-4 years ago, where we transitioned from that. If you can kind of remember how we were studying for a test, that's the conformity one branch of education. Teachers teach to the test, so basically, you teach it, you pass the test, you're an A student. Doesn't mean you know anything, but you're able to pass a test that teacher gave you information for. Doesn't mean you're going to remember it 6 months from now, or a year from now, or 10 years from now. But you passed it then, so therefore you're smart enough to move on. So I don't know what that has to do with anything in education. Personal enlightenment is the smarter way to go. I said last week 2 + 2 is 4. That's true. There are some truths and some factual stuff, how things work in the world and in education, reading and writing, science, certain things there. Something is proven. It's a theory. It's proven, and then 6 months, a year, 10 years, 20 years later, somebody else comes along because they went through this enlightenment education instead of the conformity education, and they were able to figure out, well, that's partially true and correct, but there's actually, if you tweak it slightly this way, it changes. And if you think about, simple thing that we use every day, a chair. I am sitting on a stool right now. It's got 3 legs. Behind me, you can kind of see my chair over there. It's looks pretty comfortable, right? Yeah, why aren't I sitting in that? Good question. I probably should do that and move everything to the desk over there and shoot it from there. And you think about my lazy boy that's downstairs in front of my TV that is very comfortable. You kick up the legs and lean the back, and so there's different chairs for different things, right? Depending on what you need and what you're using it for. Same thing with things in life. How many different forks have you seen? Different spoons, different knives, and so forth and so on. So being able to think out of the box and create and make different stuff is, I think, essential for humankind to advance. So with that said, what part do you as a parent have in education? I think as I look back, I went to parochial schools for myself. I did not attend a public school. I kind of thank my dad for that. He worked his butt off. There were 7 of us kids. All but one went to parochial school all the way through kindergarten through 12th grade. One kind of, from what I heard, just wasn't working for her for whatever reason, and she ended up going to a public school in the area. But my dad paid for our education. We were very lucky in that my mom worked her butt off, 7 kids, feeding us, cleaning up after us, and that type of thing. But she was home when we came home. That was nice. Not having to go to a daycare center where I'm just one of 5, 10, 20, 50 kids that the people there, I mean, they probably are doing a good job and doing their best, but they have no vested interest in who and what I become in life. They just don't. Nothing against them. They just don't have any vested interest in what I become. If you're sending your kids to a daycare in the morning, or in the evening, whenever you go to work, it might be. If it's a place in your local community, what did you do to investigate that place? Is it just it's just down the street, so it's really convenient, and it's the government's paying for it, or it's very cheap, so it's the only one I can really afford? Well, just remember that little kid, your little princess or prince that you're sending there, is learning things. Their kids are like a sponge, like I said last week. They're sponges. They just suck in stuff. From the date of the birth till probably 10, 11, 12 years old, when parents don't know anything and they know everything. I was there. I remember feeling that. That's where they're just sucking in everything. they get to a certain age and it's like they know everything. So they think. They don't. I didn't. But they think they do. So who and what is teaching your kids, and what are they becoming? Who are they hanging out with? The same thing. Your kids are going to become just like those they hang out and socialize and associate with. So if you do not like the people they are hanging out with, then do your best to get your kid away from those types of people. That's part of, I'm a Christian. If that offends you, I'm sorry. But I'm a Christian, and I believe God gave us our children to bring up the right way. And if you choose not to do that, then you're disrespecting your duty to God and to your kids and who and what they become. So that's my my idea of the first part of education, how you should bring up your kids. I've been very lucky. None of my kids are in jail. None of them have been arrested to my knowledge. None of them do any kind of drugs, not even recreational marijuana. None of them really drink alcohol to any excess or at all to some manner. As to date, I have 9 grandkids, the oldest one being 13, coming up soon. None of them are bad or anything. So I think that has something to do with the way I brought my kids up, and my wife brought our kids up as well. How are you bringing yours up? Are you having issues with them? Maybe it's because you weren't there. Maybe because there was lack of control at an early stage, and they matured to that age 10, 11, 12 age by the time they were 6 or 7. It's okay to say no to your kid. Tell them no. You can't have that. No, I'm just giving it to them to quiet them down. What are they watching on their pads or their computers or their cell phones that you've given them to play games and so forth on? What are they doing with those? It's your job and responsibility to monitor that. All these things are molding and shaping your children into what they're going to become in the future. I know it's tough. I know it's hard. I know you're going to feel like nagging them all the time. But that's your responsibility. I hate to say it, but it is. All right. Let's see. My mom was, like I said, a stay-home mom. I always felt guilty about not getting my homework done, or if I wasn't getting good grades. I know my dad was working his butt off at a full-time job, and then he was teaching in the spring and fall at the community college. He was an electrician by trade. He had at least a bachelor's, if not a couple bachelors and maybe a master's. I'm not sure. I never really asked him that. He worked for the city in the planning department, I think, there of San Diego back in the 50s, maybe early to mid 60s. And then he went out on his own and started working for some electrical companies within the San Diego area. And he was a journeyman, worked himself all the way up to the top senior levels of a company. And so I respect him for that time of saving that money. Well, not saving it, spending that money for my education. And I felt I owed him, and I still feel like I owed him a thanks for taking that extra money and putting it towards my education and trying to make me a better person. Whether I would have been better at going to a public school or not, or staying in the parochial school, you can contrast back and forth and say, yes, I'm better off. Because I went to a paid-for school by my parents, but, I have nothing to compare that with. So I may be the exact same student person that I am today if I would have went to a public school. I just don't know. All right, but what are you doing with your kids? What participation are you playing in their lives? And I'm going to bring up a slide here. And if you look at this slide, what part do parents play in their child's education? Well, you should be the guiding force through their education. You should be. Like I said, I always felt my kids, I had a responsibility to bring them up. God gave them to me, and I have a responsibility to bring them up the right way. So culture, morals, values. I told them, remember your last name when they got to a certain age and walked out the door. And why was that? Because they're representing me, my wife, and their family, and my dad, my mom, their grandparents, when they walk out the door and they go into the community and live their lives, whatever they're doing. They're representing us. It's a values type of thing that I hope, and if you asked any of them, they might say, maybe not, I don't know, might say, yeah, I was kind of afraid of my dad if I did something stupid out there, what he would do to me or what the repercussions would be, that type of thing. So as we look at this, I kind of start out with the history there. I'm going to ask you, if you have not already watched that hour podcast vlog, that you go back and watch it. I take you step by step through those periods, the colonial times, actually before colonial. I take you into Greece and through Prussia, where Germany is today. Their education systems talk about Catholicism and parochial schools, how that was a guiding force in Europe. Back in the medieval ages, the primary form of education there. I take you a little bit into Europe and then into the colonies, or the UK and the colonies, how the Puritans and the religious reasons people were coming to the United States. In the early 16, 17, 1800s, persecution in Europe from various governmental agencies, not maybe so much different than maybe today for some that are coming here. Talk about how education got started and the Prussian system of conformity, how that system actually was a personal enlightenment type system and transitioned into a system of conformity after a war with Napoleon. Talk about the Civil War, how that form of education spread throughout the United States. Talked about the early 1900s and then today, how we got to where we are. So go back and watch that video. I think it's very important for you to understand the components of that to where we are today. I think if you look back at the colonial periods when there were no public schools, that parents were responsible. Some worked together with other parents and local communities that they lived in to hire a teacher or find a teacher, because there weren't textbooks to some aspect. The only book that was really published widely at the time was probably the Bible. They used that as the primary textbook in schools back then. And so, but parents from the early days of the Americas, the colonies, have always participated in their child's education. Today we look at it so deeply, children not left behind educational program, which is a form of the Prussian conformity type system. We teach basically how to pass a test. Does a student really learn anything? I could study for, go through a couple classes, take some good notes. The teacher can give me an outline of what the test is going to be like or the key points to highlight. And I could take the test after kind of reviewing my notes because I know exactly what's going to be on the test. But do I retain that information 2 weeks after when we've progressed into something else? I might have to reflect back on it on the final for the semester or the quarter final. So I might need to reflect, but I almost assuredly going to find the same or similar questions on that semester or that quarter final that were on the test for that section or that week. So by just reviewing my notes and going back, or if I get the test back, I can kind of look at that as a reference guide as well. Pass a test pass the final for that semester. But after that, summer comes and we lose everything not everything, but a lot of stuff we learned in school that year. Or if we've never used that again for some time until maybe after we get out of high school, a lot of that's forgotten. So unfortunately, that type of test, the conformity type system, no child left behind system, is, in my opinion, a bad system of education. Is that what your school district is using? If they are, some school districts are actually going from the enlightened back into that type of system right now. So if your school is going that way, resist it. Resist it with all means, in my opinion. How do you do that? Well, education, as you can see, we'll look at the financial part right here. They say public education is free. Let me tell you, just like I told all my students when I was teaching high school. Education is free, they tell you, Mr. Corum. I demand this, I demand that, and I say education is not free. No such thing as a free education. Your parents or people that live in your community are paying for your education. What do you mean? Well, where do you think the money comes to pay the teachers? Where do you think the money comes to pay the buildings? Where do you think the money comes for the textbooks and all the administration that runs the school? All the money that runs the athletic programs in the school. Where do you think that all comes from? Do you think they have a tree in the backyard or out here somewhere? They're just growing that money. It comes from somewhere. It comes from taxes. Primarily, education was funded through property taxes in every state, every city, county, and state throughout the United States. A large portion, probably it used to be the only portion, but now they have such things as lotteries in states. There are some communities that charge as part of their sales tax some kind of tax for education and so forth. So there's other taxes that are also now thrown into that, but still a large chunk of that comes from property taxes that covers education in your community. I don't have kids here in Las Vegas. I have a house though, and I'm paying property tax that I'm paying for kids' education here. I told them that. They just need to mature and figure out education is not free. I'm paying for your education now as well as everybody else in the community. And in the future, you'll be paying for those kids' education as well. And they kind of looked at me and said, wow, thank you for that. I just lost a light. Thank you for that. Education is not free. So with that said, let's look at how education is kind of, there's a couple areas here. So property taxes, state money and federal money. Funding sources I have right there. You can kind of break it down. Go to the website and check it out. Find out how, and it's not 100%, but it's probably pretty close for most areas, how education is broken down to and how where funding comes from the state level, or from the federal level to the state to the local communities, cities, and so forth levels. Vouchers. Some states offer that. I put a website link here for you as well for that. Some states offer vouchers, some do not. Maybe that's a choice you need to make. I don't like education here. I'm thinking about moving out of California like I did. And my daughter, who didn't like what was going on there, she moved to Tennessee, where education was a little more traditional, I guess you could say, or a little more conservative in the mindset thinking than California's thinking. She didn't want her kids going through the conformity education in California. So they moved to Tennessee. They didn't have a ton of money, but they knew that the opportunities for their kids and how they wanted to bring them up and the education there would be better for what they wanted their kids to have. Look at that. I know it costs a lot of money. They didn't take all their stuff with them. The moving truck was expensive. She had found a job luckily before they decided to move there. So I think her employer paid for a part of the transportation of their stuff. So look for those types of opportunities as well. But vouchers are important. So look from state to state. Maybe that's a decision you need to make. We're going to move to a state where they actually give me a voucher that I can send my kid to a private school of my choice. I know that's not 100% for everybody. Can't do that. But it's an option and an opportunity for some. Think about it. You don't need to be stuck in a school that's not progressing or has a bad reputation or is not of value for your kid, is not teaching them what you think they should teach. Even in school districts, the same school district, you might have a variety of schools that one is better than the other. And they're not always in a more affluent or white community. Sometimes they're in a black or a Hispanic or whatever kind of community. Do your homework, find out and research for yourself. If possible, try moving into that location where that school is open to your kids going to. Some have inter-district transfers, meaning your kid, there's a certain percentage of kids that can transfer from one school, even though you live on the other side of town, to a better school somewhere else. So look at that. The only issue with that is a transportation issue. Your kid's going to be on the bus instead of 15 to 20 minutes to maybe an hour, hour and a half each way. So, think about that as well. Look at the 50-state comparison, private schools in choice. So take a minute and look at the 50 states. What school has the best education, or which state has the best education system in the state? It may match exactly what you think for your kid is what you want them to learn, or it may not. So if it's number one and it's like I've researched the schools and found out that that's not where I want my kid to grow up, that's not what I believe in, then don't move to that state, even though it's number one. I don't know who's grading the states, but usually they lean one way or another. So find what works best for you. Talk to some people that have kids that are going to that school district. Look on the Better Business Bureau. Do some research. Call somebody in the community. Go visit the schools themselves. Go to the school district offices. Visit them. Go look at the school. See what it looks like. So take some time and do a comparison, whether it's locally or across a county line in another county or somewhere in the state. California is huge. Texas is huge. Alaska is really, really huge. Look at those different schools and different communities and see how you fit in with it. Maybe that's what you need to do. All right, so let's look at how an education hierarchy, kind of like a flow chart of how schools are set up in America. There's the federal level. You have the Department of Education, who the president appoints the director of. So every time a new president comes in, you're going to get basically a new person, Secretary of Education, that runs the Department of Education at the United States level. They support programs like a lot of the nutrition programs, so kids that don't have food at the schools. They provide some special ed courses as well as courses or monies. They don't provide the courses, but they provide the monies that pays for these types of courses. Special education, money for technology improvements in school districts throughout the country. They'll look at those types of things. They'll send it either to the state or they'll send it directly to the county or the Board of Education in those counties, and then trickle down to the schools as they see fit. And we'll talk about how school districts are broken up a little bit too. So as far as, I don't know how big the Department of Education is in the United States. I don't want to guess. But if it's over 100 people, I could probably run it with 100 people in it or less. It should be just a depository for funds coming from the federal government and a way to send it out to these different locations. A small 1, 2, 3 person HR department. Sorry to say, you got to have that. A couple of attorneys maybe for litigation and that type of stuff to review financial or review stuff as far as the legal system. Some processing people, people that are looking outside the box for how to get monies coming in from private entities, maybe a way of getting some grants and that type of thing from donors throughout the country, large corporations and businesses. And that's it. Looking at a way of uniformly connecting the schools throughout the United States. But I think that's all it should be. There's nothing in the Constitution that says anything about a Department of Education. A federal Department of Education is created, I don't know, 40 or 50 years ago, maybe somewhere in that ballpark, 30 years ago. We did just fine without it. But if we have monies that are coming in at the federal level and we have distribution, or we have these specific items that need to be part of the federal government, okay, I could see why it might need it to exist, but probably not at the size that it's currently at. All right, so that takes care of the federal level. The state kind of does the same thing at the state level instead of across the whole country. It does things within the state. It takes the monies from various other resources and revenues like the lotteries and so forth that come in and distributes it. Might do research as far as education throughout the state through the various school districts. I think, I could be wrong, but I think Nevada is broken up into school districts based on the number of counties. Whereas in California, where I came from, they are everywhere. School districts are everywhere. I don't really know how they got them set up or where they come from, but I probably within I'd say 20 minutes. 20 minutes of drive time from my house in Temecula, you could probably be in probably no less than 10 school districts. Some are just for elementary through or kindergarten through middle school. Some are just elementary school. Some might just be high school. Some might be a combination of all the above. So they're all over the place in California. I don't know who decided how they set up that system there, but I don't know if Nevada's is much better. I think Clark County's school district, I could be wrong, but it's in the top 5. It might be number 3 largest school district in the country. It's grown exponentially as the city has grown over the last 20 years. I think when I first came here in the early or mid 1980s, there might have been 300,000 or 400,000 people living in the Las Vegas Valley at that time. Now it's over 2 million. Lots of kids. I think there's over 60 or close to, I don't even remember. I could be totally wrong. It could be anywhere from 60 to 120,000 students in the district. It's large. They have somewhere between a $3 and $5 billion budget every year. It's probably larger than maybe some states. maybe not. There are some pretty small states like Rhode Island. They might be in a fight for whatever. I don't know. I haven't looked at Rhode Island's budget or whatever. But anyway, I'm just saying it's a lot. $3 to $5 billion a year budget. And the size of the school, I don't even remember. I ran for school board last year. I think there was 130 schools, everything from preschool to elementary to junior high to technical type schools and so forth, career type academies and charter schools and that type of thing. So that's a lot. The district in Clark County is actually broken up, I think, into, I don't know, there's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, I think. So into districts, 7 or 8 districts, broken up in amongst itself. Temecula, when I first started teaching there a few years ago, started working there 2008 or 9, I think it was. They have a school board, but all the members from the school board could have come from anywhere within the school district areas where their students would come from. It didn't matter. I mean, I could be living here, and another school board member could live right next door to me, and we uniformly represent the whole district. Well, the state of California says that doesn't work. You can't do that. You have to break it down into micro districts, so it's even, because if all 5 of us live next door on the school board, right next door in this community, you're going to be sending all the money, and you're only representing all the kids that go to the high school that your kids go to. I guess you could say maybe. That's not how I would have looked at it, but I can see how other people might look at it that way. So they broke it up into districts, so you have an equal representation at the school board for these specific areas within the city and that district. So, all the schools would be on an equal footing. Okay. All right, so that's possibly true. I think that, no, not everybody thinks like I do, and I agree that might be a good idea. But it also took possibilities of good people that could be on the school board, took them out of the ability of running for the board, because now you only can have 1 from each of these areas. So, and maybe 4 of the 5 school district members, they all live in one area. The best ones to be on the school board is what I'm saying. All right, so anyway, ways of thinking about that. So that's how it's set up here in Las Vegas. We have basically 1 school district for the county, several cities. We have the city of Henderson, city of North Las Vegas. We have Las Vegas, of course, itself. There's one more community. I think it's not really a city in and of itself, but I think it's the township or the center of Summerlin. It's not really a city at this point. It's part of the county areas. But anyway, so they've added one appointed person from each of these cities, supposedly, to the board here, which then the local board took all their voting rights and everything away. The elected people from the district A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H, I believe, is the districts that are here. I'm not sure if there's an H. There might be. But anyway, that's how it works here in Nevada. Your districts are probably similar. They can be large, small, or broken into just elementary school or middle school and high school districts. It depends on where you live and how the system's set up. So that's how that's set up at the state level. I talked about the County Board of Education. It's kind of the microcosm that's oversees the education here as well. Sometimes you'd have multiple districts within a county. Here in Clark County, there's just one. So I'm not sure they have a Clark County School District Board here, but there's nothing per se at the county level like there are in like California. So Riverside, California, where I taught, because there's so many districts within that community, they would have a board of a school board, a board of education at the county level to oversee all the districts within that one county. Here in Riverside, there's just the one district, so they don't have really a county-wide district that oversees all the counties because there's only one school board. All right, so that kind of takes you through that process. So at the federal level, they kind of oversee and kind of coordinate around the country, and then offer some monies and so forth. And how do they distribute the monies? Well, they'll tell a school district, hey, we have money that's available for technology. If you meet this criteria, we'll send some money to your district. Or if you're going to improve your schools in this area, we'll send you some money. All the food programs, a majority of the food programs for the kids, that's unfortunate that we have to do food at the school level. It would be nicer to have another mechanism so kids could actually eat, other than having to come to school in the morning hungry because their parents did not feed them. Sometimes there's a good reason why they don't. They just don't have the money and so forth. Some kids might not actually be living in a physical residence or have a place to live. They're living in a car or under a bridge somewhere. You'd be surprised to the number of kids that actually happens in communities. So they may not have clothes and so forth as well. So some of these districts provide clothes. They provide not just food for breakfast, but they'll provide food for lunch and sometimes snacks to take home at the end of the day. So the federal government usually does those kind of programs. They'll usually provide money for like special education programs. There might be a federal guideline as far as special education, and if you start this program in your school district, we'll send you some money to cover that, as well as grants and so forth to improve things. So there are good things about the federal government, but at the same time, I don't think their hands should be fully in it. They should be a coordinating agency and not an agency that tells you specifically how to do things or what kind of curriculum and so forth you should set up. That should be done at the state and local community level. It's the way Department of Education is something that the Constitution doesn't set up. That's one of the things in the Constitution. It says things not set up in the federal government should be reserved for the states, and education is one of those things that's not set up in the Constitution, and therefore should be a state power and not a federal government power. Anyway, there you go. Back on the Constitution. State level, same thing. They're like the federal government. They coordinate within the state with the different districts within the state. And then you have usually a county board of education if you have multiple districts within a certain county or city area. And then you have the districts themselves, like Clark County School District, or I came from Temecula Valley School District. You'll have Los Angeles Unified School District or San Diego Unified School District. And then you'll have some smaller ones that are in there as well. They're broken down a little bit more into sub-districts within a local district, like I just said. In California, that's pretty, and with some states it might be the same, the way set up. Smaller districts within a county area. So they have elections for the board. They usually come around, and either somewhere usually between 2 and 4 years are the terms for school boards. I don't know if there's one. There might be some rare ones that are 5 or 6 years terms, but generally they're 2 to 4 year terms, depending on where you live. They hire a superintendent generally that oversees all operations within a school district. Here in Las Vegas, it's Jesus Jara. Been here for I think 3 or 4, maybe 5 years now. Not very popular. Not very popular with the parents. Might be a good reason for that. Maybe it's because we're Las Vegas scores on the national level of education. We've actually dropped from where it was when he got here or was brought in. Teachers, we just went through a big teacher, I wouldn't say a strike, but contract negotiation, which the teachers, unions, and so forth, they're in a fight. It had to go to the state for a resolution, basically. So the superintendent, you have K through 12 schools, and then you have employee unions for both the teachers and support employees, which I just said they went through. One thing about unions, they are not here to support your kids. That is not why a union exists. I had a choice here in Clark County to join the union or not, because I taught here briefly in a couple years ago. I decided not to join the union, only because, for a couple reasons. One, I didn't believe in their philosophy. And two, their philosophy, more like a socialist, communist type group, organization in my mind. And a lot of unions are like that. I mean, they do some good things, but it's only for their employees, for the members of the union. They didn't treat me very well. Even when I was running for the school district, they wouldn't meet with me until I got through the primary. If I was one of the top, I think it was top 2 people running for the office, we'd kind of do a runoff, and only the top 2 vote getters in the district would move to the final election. So I finished out of, I think it was 10 or 11. I finished 6th, I think, out of the group. I didn't have any sponsors or anything like that. But anyway, that's for another day. But unions are not here to support you. They're not here to support your kids. That's not their job. They don't get paid by your kids. Or they may sound like they're supporting your kids, but that is not their goal. So take that with a grain of salt. Just know that unions are not here for you, your kids, or anything. Responsibilities. The federal government should help negotiate and provide guidelines for certain things in education and some federal funding, and distribute that based on need throughout the states to either at the state or county levels, or maybe even to a school. I guess they could. The state coordinates things throughout the state, teaching certifications and things like that, as far as the teachers, background checks, all that kind of stuff should be done, or not done through the state in and of itself, but set up the guidelines for that, so you know that the teachers coming into the educational program are licensed and don't have criminal backgrounds that you don't want your kids to be part of. At the county level, it's kind of the same as the state level, depending on if you have multiple districts in the county, or if it's just one, you just kind of drop straight to the district level there. Oversee the curriculum level, all operations. This is through the superintendent, and here in Clark County it would be the Board of Education, or not the Board of Education. It'd be the board, the school board, local school board, Clark County School District School Board. Trustees is what they call them. At the school level, it's kind of weird in Nevada. It's actually, they're kind of separating the school districts a little bit away from the schools as far as the funding part and some other things. It's weird. I don't totally agree with that, because you're just creating another layer of frustration, separation of powers, and conflict. And we should not have any conflict in our education system. It should be united and going in the same direction. But by allowing direct contact from what might be the school in and of itself, the principal, up to the state level or the county level, without going first to the superintendent of the school district, I don't think it's good. I think it's bad. And anyway, that's my opinion on that. Then you have the school, and then you have the teachers who have tenure. I had tenure. Did I feel reassured in my job security? A little bit, I guess you could say. Even though I was a teacher and had tenure, I would say that teachers should not have tenure. I come from a business background. Um, I think teachers should be in the same category. I know that they say the reason for having tenure is so that teachers could be able to teach something without risk of being terminated. They terminate them. They terminate them anyway. To be honest with you, and set it all up in a recourse matter. I mean, there's a method for going back and fighting fighting the process of getting terminated for wrongful termination. I think you should always have that recourse. But I think that today we have more of an issue of teachers teaching outside of their subject matter and teaching things about, unfortunately, I'm going to say it, health, sex, race, and those types of things, which should stay out of education. The education can be colorful to some aspect, not black and white. Some things are black and white. Going back to the math, 2 plus 2 is 4 again. That's black and white. It's just the way it is. I think you should have the opportunity to open certain things depending on the age of the kids, the discussion level, because I think discussion is good. But at the same time, just like when I went to get my master's degree, I'm a 4.0 student, so I'm a summa cum laude on my bachelor's degree. One of my master's teachers in education, she and I did not see everything 100%. Eye to eye. I know she had been there for years. She's been a teacher for 30 years, 40 years. She's got a PhD in education. She's working for this school, I think it's Azusa Pacific University, a Christian school, okay. And she's just got a list of things. But I didn't 100% agree with the way things were done or how she taught this or that. And I think that was to my unbenefit. I don't think, and so students today, when you go in a class and you're taking a class and the teacher says it's my way or the highway, that's kind of how I felt here. So I went from basically a 4.0 to a 3. I don't know, remember what it was, 3.68 or 3.7 or 3.8, somewhere in there, for my master's degree. I didn't really think that was a huge, big deal, but going from a 4.0 and dropping down, it's like right in the heart, a little bit. But hey, that's life. That's the way things work. Responsibilities, parents. That's you. You need to know how all this works. I didn't really know until I became a teacher and really started to look at how this stuff all works. I kind of assumed my wife, bad for me, I was like my dad, working full-time, working 2 jobs, having a business or whatever it took to make sure my kids and family were all taken care of, so my wife really didn't have to work while the kids are going through their educational processes through those school years, and we were lucky at that. I think that's why one of the reasons why my kids are not abusers of any kind of drug or alcohol. I think that was very, we watched who they hung out with, and we basically found a way to dissuade and pull them away from friends or kids we didn't want them to associate with. So we were creative in that part, and my wife was very good at that in that area. We followed up. She mostly followed up on their education, making sure if they had issues with a teacher or if they had issues with the grading or curriculum, that she would follow up with the school and follow up with the teachers on those types of items. So I think my kids turned out great because of her. Not maybe so much for me. I did my supportive role on the backside, making sure that she was available to do all those things. I understand not everybody can do that, and you need to find a mechanism or a manner or a way to do that. You might need to help your kid with it, other than saying, is their homework done? Yes. You need to actually review their homework, at least for a while. And then as you became more assured that they were doing their homework and it was done correctly, you could start to back off a little bit and allow them to do it, because they would come to you for help instead of saying, yes, it's done, when it's really not done. And you would build that relationship and rapport and trust with your child. things they're watching on TV. We never allowed our kids to watch, I hate to say it, those cartoons on Fox on Sunday evenings. We just didn't let I didn't let that happen. It brings your child up. They might be funny for an adult, okay, I could see that, but the language and the morals and values that are taught on those shows just totally destroy the morals and values of your child. Video games, I've always been, video games didn't come out until I was an adult. So to say that they had a negative effect on me in my youth, I can't really qualify that. But I think there are some games, or the amount of time you might be playing a video game, that can have, for some, depending on where they're brought up and their culture, morals, and values, and who they associate with and hang out with and so forth, can play a factor in who and what you become. So you just need to monitor that and watch it. And if you see some inconsistencies or things you don't like seeing, then you need to adjust that. It's just common sense, in my opinion. You know what's right, what's wrong, how they're changing and not changing, and what they're doing that's causing them to change. You need to be an active player in your child's life and education. You can't sit on the sidelines and watch it. You need to become part of the curriculum through your school district. Ask to be part of the curriculum community, review community. I think that any curriculum that's going to be new generally has to come through the school board prior to being implemented anywhere in the district. At least I think in Clark County it did to some aspect. They never looked at mine when I was there teaching video production and teaching journalism. I was only there for 4 or 5 months and they didn't have any, so it's like I have to create this on the fly now, especially during COVID, when I'm trying to do a partial class with students in the classroom, but yet a majority of them online. A hybrid class, I guess is what they called it. I didn't have any time. I got brought in. Here's your classes. Go to work. I had to create something for them. So I did, and that didn't actually get approved, but there was, like I said, career technical education, and me, I don't really, I don't go outside the box. I keep it based upon the industry that I'm teaching in. So journalism, I created stuff that you would take at a journalist school, early beginnings, because that's where we were at, beginning kind of journalism classes and so forth, and videography or video production classes. How a camera works, the history of it, and so forth and so on. Where is it now? Where is it at? And where's it going? Type of thing. So that's what basically I taught. Not all teachers teach that way, and that's why we need to get rid of or change tenure and monitor some of the stuff that teachers are teaching in our school. What's up on their walls in their classroom? I never put anything on my wall that was oriented in any way other than what I was teaching in the class. So I think that's important too. Let's see. Curriculum. Parents, this is where we're having a real struggle right now. I think we've given our parental duty to raising our kids away to the government. I think it's been a progressive thing. I definitely can see it from the time I was a child going through elementary, middle school, high school, into college to today. I think we entrust so much and believe so much in our public school system. They are raising our kids, and sometimes that's to the detriment of the parent. I think you need to be involved. If you have a parent or if you have a child in school, you need to know who the teacher is going to be next year, or the teachers are going to be if they're in high school or middle school. You need to do your little review. You need to maybe talk to some other parents if you can, whose kids have gone through those classes. Sometimes, your kid will know a kid that's in their class that has an older sibling. Their kid went through that teacher's class last year. It's upon you to kind of figure out, who is this teacher? What are they going to be teaching my kid? And do I agree with it? I mean, you may not have some say, but if you're going to make any changes, it's got to be done before the school semester starts in the fall. You got to make those changes at that point. Look at school district transfers. Find a better school. Move if you have to move to another school district, or another school. Could be in the same district. As my daughter moved from California to Nashville because she didn't like what was coming the next year in the schools there. So she said, it's time for us to leave. They really couldn't afford the move, but they did it anyway for the benefit of their children. You may have to do that as well. But it's you. Maybe starting, I knew they have the PTSA, Parent Teachers Association, or Parent Teachers Association. Whatever it might be in your schools, get involved, but mold and shape that group into actually something that's beneficial for you and the other parents in the school. You guys need to get involved. This is the mechanism that's available at this point to check on curriculum. Maybe you can have a curriculum review committee within your PTA or PTSA or whatever it might be. So that's important. We get to communication here. I think we're failing in communication at the schools. Parents to teachers, schools to parents, and parents to teachers and school. We just assume, and I've worked at some schools where, some of the parents don't speak English. Southern California, here in Nevada and so forth. And schools are somewhat intimidating for foreigners, foreign parents that don't speak the language. I think we've done a lot better over the last 20 years on kind of integrating that into our school system. But why I think knowing a foreign language is extremely important. I surely wish my parents, I have a German background, I wish my grandparents would have taught my parents German, my mom, on my mom's side particularly. And I wish I spoke German, to be honest with you. Growing up in Southern California, Spanish is not a foreign language. It's a language of California. And like Mexico, and some places in Nevada, and Arizona and Texas. It's almost as an important language as English is at this point. But English needs to be the universal language, and let me tell you why. 2 reasons. It's the language of business in the world. Meaning, if you want your kid to grow up to do well in any business, whether they're a doctor, attorney, business owner, a general manager of a large corporation, get a job somewhere, even at the very early lower levels, and working themselves up to being the CEO of some major corporation, which could happen. English is a primary language, and proper English is business English, spoken English is vitally important. They need to learn it. I would suggest, if you're a parent and it's not your first language, that you work hard to encourage your kids, and by encouraging your kids, you also learn the language. You primarily try to speak the language in your home. It's taught all over the world. If you go to any place in Europe, you're generally on the streets, you're going to find somebody that can speak English. Whether you're in Germany, France, Italy, Greece, it doesn't matter. You're going to find somebody that's going to speak English there. Same within Russia, probably China to a lesser part, but those that are people that are in the business community and world there, they're going to speak English. Japan, same thing. They're going to speak English. So it's the language of business, and that's why you should learn it. Not because it's an American thing or American custom. We're the owner, one of the primary owners of the English language, and for us not to teach our kids and develop them in the English language is a major disservice to them. So English is vital. I wish I would have learned Spanish. There was nobody in my family that really spoke it, but I can't imagine living where I live today and have lived my whole life that Spanish is not taught. I mean, it should have been in California back as far as the 1970s at least, if not earlier. Should have been a secondary language that was primarily taught in our education system. So look at the school your kid goes to. I have a niece that's going to a school in San Diego that half the day is in English, the other half is in Spanish. And she's primarily an English speaker, so she's had to adapt and learn and learn the language of Spanish. So something like that is something that I think is extremely important. When you think of core classes and curriculum, who decides? We have always had like reading and writing, and arithmetic, right? Math, history, science, physical education, quasi health classes. Some schools have just physical education, depending if you're in the middle schools. They'll teach a health component, which is a class. Generally a semester, maybe a year, but generally a semester that's all inclusive of itself. We never sought and what portion of sex education, the body parts of a male and female, are generally included in the health course. And that's it. Nothing about, how you feel about it, this, that, or anything. It's just the black and white parts of the human anatomy, how it works, what it does, and so forth and so on. Arts and technology, something, drama classes and arts classes, ceramics, whatever, some kind of art, painting classes, been part of it too. And as you move into the high school, you'll have career technical education or career academies like they have here in Las Vegas and so forth. ROTC, a military component, and then they'll have miscellaneous classes. We had some classes that the students in Temecula that were interested in, like astronomy. It's not a core class that's going to do anything for you, but you have an elective, so you're able to take an astronomy class and learn basics. Philosophy, I don't think is not a core class, but they had like a philosophy because the students wanted to learn it. You need to highly monitor some of these miscellaneous classes as to content. What is being taught in these classes? But I think we should keep our education on these core classes through the early K through middle school. These are the core classes that should be taught. Usually ROTC and miscellaneous stuff is not taught in the junior or junior high level. There might be some career technical stuff, but generally not a lot. Mostly it might be in computers and stuff like that, or STEM or some kind of science, technology and stuff like that, math, mix STEM or STEAM classes in those areas. But you need to know what's the curriculum at your school. You need to have a voice in saying it. That's what your job as a parent is, in my opinion. Stop being on the bench and start being part of your kids' education. You're sending them to this school to learn things and how to live their lives, their cultures and values and morals and so forth. If you don't like what they're teaching there, it's up to you to find a better mechanism or a way or a manner to either get it integrated into that school with the support of other parents in the district and having a say through the school board of implementing these things. Do it peacefully, not militaristically or anything like that, but it's important. So you should be, in my opinion, the parents should be the key in each community as to what courses are being taught in school. And leave out all the fluff stuff. The fluff, the signs, the purple flags up on the wall or the rainbow flags up on the wall and all that has, in my opinion, no place in school. That should come later in life. That's outside of the school prerogative or view of things. Sorry, but I'm strictly about the enlightenment part and the growing and expanding. And when you put these things up in a school, you're kind of propagandizing towards the student what you think they should be, even though the parent may not agree. And the parent owns the kid. By God gave that kid to them to maintain and operate. The city did not give that kid to those parents. The government did not give those kids to the parents. The teacher did not give those kids to the parents. And your job is to educate them properly and not persuade or direct them in one way or the other. In my opinion, that's the way I've always taught. To educate them, prepare them for the realities of the world, what's coming ahead, and let them figure out who they are inside and so forth on their own. All right, or direct them in a direction to help them find it, and then keep the parents involved, because as a teacher, a student might come to me in confidence, and that's fine. But if it's something that's life-threatening to them, something that's ultimately life-changing for them, I think that somebody possibly above my pay grade at the school, as well as their parents, need to know. So that's me. And I think our education system should work the same way. Communication. I have often thought, and I think that it's probably important, and it's really hard to do, to get parents to show up at school functions. Meeting the teacher day, back to school day. I think a lot of this stuff happens too late in the school year, or it's usually a few weeks to a month or two after school starts that you're coming to meet the teacher. I think that's backwards. It's probably almost impossible because sometimes turnover and everything, you don't know what's going to happen, but sometimes I think it's almost better to have, if you can, if your kids are set up and you know which class they're going in the next year, to meet the teacher at the end of the school year for the next. So if there's any inconsistencies, the parent can have the opportunity to be part of the discussion as far as that goes. So I know that that's going to stir up a lot of stuff at the district level, but that's important. I think every teacher in even the schools I was at in Nevada and California, while there is a teacher, maybe a name and kind of a short description of the teacher, or maybe they have a classroom webpage or something like that, not everybody does, and they're all different. And I think you should have a generic type system that tells the parents who you are, basically with a short caption video of you. What kind of teacher are you? What are you teaching? This is what my philosophy is. This is what I think, and so forth and so on. And the parents can have a better idea, understanding of who you are. Contact, while we have email and we have text messaging, and while some parents are all over that, and the vast majority are not, there needs to be a mechanism for parents to, and this is probably going a little bit out there, but maybe there's a fine. Okay, we have your kid. We want your input. You're not giving us anything. What do we do? What do we do with you? What do we do with your kid? You have no say now in the future if something should happen. How about that? We're going to stick your kid with somebody that you don't like, you don't trust, you don't think is a good teacher, but because you didn't say anything about it, that's your fault, parent. And I think that's where we are somewhat today in education. We as parents have lacked on our part in communication. We wait to the last second, there's a fight at school, or we get the report card with 4 F's and 2 D minuses or whatever on it, and then we go after the teacher, and it's all the teacher's fault. Or not our kids. I never gave a student an F. Never. In the 12 years or so that I've taught, I never failed a student. I always told my students I never fail anybody in my classes. Meaning, I'm not like my teacher in my master's class or your teacher in your college class, that unless you did it their way, you're not going to pass the class. My kids, if they were able to demonstrate, if they showed up on time, they demonstrated their ability to pass the written test, the verbal test, and or the testing portion that had to do with them actually doing the process. Because remember, I'm career technical education, so sometimes it's hands-on. They have to demonstrate their ability to accomplish the task through hands-on stuff. I never failed a student. That was always up to them. A student coming in on the last week and saying, "Sorry, Mr. Corum, I didn't finish this assignment. I didn't finish that assignment. I didn't finish this one. I didn't do that one. I wasn't here. Can you give me a C?" I had lots of those. And I said, I wish I could. But it's based upon you through the semester and and what you did and how you performed. And you chose not to do and perform. And that's what your grade is subject to. You decided to fail the class. I put up the guidelines. I put up the outlines. I reminded you. I did everything I could to help you and assist you through the process. But you have to ultimately be responsible for yourself. And that's what's lacking in education today. Responsibility for yourself. Starts with the student, but you as a parent have to educate and bring your kid along in that area as well. It's your responsibility. God gave you these children. Whether you wanted them or not, that's for you to decide. But now that you're responsible for them, you need to assure that they're growing up with the right morals and values, and they're taking on the challenges And education, in my opinion, should be based upon what the realities of life are going to be once they leave education. Responsibility for themselves, who and what they are, what they mature and come out to be in life. So I think I've kind of hit everything here. District communication definitely could be better. School communication I think would be better. Teacher, I know that I didn't have always the best communication with my parents, and the expectation with me having basically anywhere from 4 to 5 classes a day with anywhere from 30 to 40 kids in each class. You do the math. 4 times 5 is, I had 200 students a day in my classroom as a high school teacher. I have 30 kids that might be challenging and not doing well, and out of that 200, how much time do I have in a given day to follow up with each parent on that? It's just not going to happen. So with that said, sometimes it kind of has to fall back on the parent a little bit, where the parent is contacting me. They're monitoring the grades, they're monitoring the students' stuff through a web address or a link or something like that on their cell phones or computers. They don't have a cell phone, they don't have a computer. Well, if they want to monitor their child's progress, a lot of schools now give their child a computer to take home and so forth. They need to do their due diligence on their side to assure that they're keeping up on top of their child. Like I said, 200 kids with 30 being challenged, how much time do I have in a given day or week to contact? Let's say we average somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes per kid. 5 minutes, 200 kids is what? Is 1,000 minutes. How many minutes are in an hour? 60. I could be on the phone. I could be doing emails all day, all night long. It just doesn't work. So the partnership has to be there between the parent and the teacher and the teacher and the parent. Those parents that contacted me, I followed up with more than those that didn't. That's just the nature of the beast. I don't want to get beat up and battered by parents every day of the same student. But we come together, we meet, we discuss, we create a plan together, and we create a monitoring system. How we get that child to the next level and bring them along. Once we've established that, and I'm on my side and you're on your side, and we're both doing our parts, hopefully we don't have to talk to each other at least maybe once or twice the rest of the year. Boom, we're done, right? As opposed to these that I'm continually following up with. Not only does it become an issue between the parent and the teacher, following up and monitoring and so forth, but it becomes a problem with the teacher and sometimes the counselor or the principal and other administrative people at the school. How much time does that add on to the time that I need to talk and work with parents? Exponentially, right? Why am I there? To teach, right? Right. Their kids something and bring them along. So it works. I mean, the communication between the parents, the school, teachers, and so forth needs to get, in my opinion, 100% better. I'm not going to say 1,000 because that's not real. 100% better. It is piss poor in the places where I've been. Maybe it's better in other places, and we'll look at that. Maybe, as a school district, we need to look at that and go to other districts and see what they're doing to fine-tune that. But parents, you've given away your kids to the schools. You have to step back in. You got to be a voice for them. You have to go to the school board meetings. But if you're going to the school board meetings and talking about how curriculum is messed up, it's too late. You need to get there before. You need to be part of the education system. You need to be at the state level. You need to be at if you have multiple districts in the county, you need to be at the county level, and then you need to be at the district level. So band together, find a group, find a method, find a tool, and create a method and tool for communication to be better and have some say in your child's education. If I would have made it on the school board, I would have had at least monthly meetings with my parents at a local location to have their input to me. I would have worked for the students and the parents, and not for my own special interest or anybody's special interest. and I would have represented the parents in that meaning, manner, and way. I'm their voice, not a district voice, because I was elected by the community to be here. Anyway, maybe I will put up my video for running for office, and you will be able to see that, or I'll put up a link maybe next week. With that said, I thank you for your time. I've been on way too long. You guys have a great week. Unless something pops up between now and next week, which it could, because we have an election this week in Nevada, and then I think actually the Republican caucus, even though election day is today here, for the Democrats per se, the caucus is on Thursday for the only one. There's several people, I guess, on the caucus ballot, but Donald Trump is the only main candidate that's on the ballot here in the caucus for Republicans. With that said, so something could happen there. It's the world. Stuff happens all the time. Something may pop up. But part 3 of education next week. I'm not sure exactly what we'll talk about. I'll have to review what I've said here and so forth. But my last remaining thing here is education. Parents, you need to be part of the education process. You need to decide the curriculum. You need to have the opportunity to look at it. And every board, at least the core curriculum, usually goes any new class usually goes before the school board or the board of education or the county board, depending on where you are as far as how they have it set up. So review it. You need to see it. You need to know what your kids are being taught. Anything outside that, pay a visit to your kid's classroom. If there's a weird poster up on the wall saying something that's not based on the core material in that class, say something. All right. Somebody brings home a video of a teacher saying or doing something that's outside their core curriculum area, say something. Be a voice and take charge of your kids' education. That's all I got to say. You have a great day. You may have liked what you heard here. You may have not liked anything I said today. And you know what? That's okay, because the truth is simple, and sometimes the truth hurts. So with that said, we'll see you next time.